Welcome to the Predators official podcast, a special 2026 NHL Trade Deadline edition of the POP. I'm Brooks Bratten, alongside my friends Max Herz and Kara Hammer, as we record this on Friday, March 6th, mere hours after the deadline has passed. I think we're all a little bit tired, a little bit worn out from what was a crazy week, but lots to talk about, and we wanted to jump on with a quick little episode just to recap everything, talk about what we saw over the last week or so, and look ahead toward the future. But Max, I'll start with you. It's, again, a crazy week. We were on the road in Columbus. A couple of guys get dealt right before the game Thursday night. Michael Bunting gets dealt. What do you make of all of this, and how has your week been?
Well, I think my big takeaway from what the Preds did in totality on deadline week, Brooks, is they traded away players on expiring contracts that each had a direct line to free up playing time the final quarter of this season for players with similar profiles. Trading Nick Blankenburg away opens up a spot for Ryan Ufko. Trading Cole Smith opens up a spot for Reed Schaefer down the stretch this season. Trading Michael Bunting opens up a spot for Zach LaRue. And trading trading Michael McCarron opens up a center spot for some combination of Fedor Svechkov and, as we saw earlier this week, Matt Wood to play some center. So I think those moves were all purposeful. They aren't moves that really kill the Preds' playoff chances, but they are moves that get a draft pick each for a UFA, and the Preds in total get a second, a pair of thirds, and a fifth in exchange for 4 roster players who become rentals for other playoff teams this year.
Kara, what do you think of everything that you've seen the last few days? And especially, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. Thursday night, obviously, you're ringside there at Bridgestone Arena with a lot going on. What have you made of the last 72, 96 hours or so?
You know, I'm going to kind of hit off of what Max said. And speaking with Roman Josi, obviously, you know, interviewing the captain right before the game on Thursday night. And he came out and my question to him was, it's been emotional, these 72 hours. You know, you're uprooting, people's lives are changing. You look at Michael McCarron, Cole Smith, Michael Bunting, 3 guys with young children. We saw their babies on the gold carpet walk. So you have that in the back of your mind. But Roman was very adamant of, hey, we still have a job to do. We're going to go out there, we're going to play, and we're still in a playoff hunt. I mean, when they were looking at Boston, another team in a similar situation, vying to make the postseason, Roman felt like we have a chance. We're fighting for a playoff spot. So even without these guys that you look at who seem like there's so much of the identity of the Preds, they don't feel like they're out of it, and they feel like, hey, having some of these young guys come up can help re-energize the group. I mean, how many times have we seen players come up from Milwaukee who have been down, they come back up and they're hungry. They want to get in the lineup. They want to bring that energy. And I think it was pretty evident last night against the Boston Bruins.
100%. Yeah, a big 6-3 win against the Bruins. We'll touch more on that in just a second. And Max mentioned everything, and I want to just run through everything real quick so we confirm what has happened over the last few days. So you mentioned it, Max. It started on Tuesday in Columbus. Michael McCarron dealt to Minnesota in exchange for a second-round pick. Then later that night after the game, Cole Smith dealt to Vegas in exchange for a third-round pick and a prospect. On Wednesday evening, it was Nick Blankenburg going to Colorado for a fifth-round pick. And then right before the game on Thursday night, Michael Bunting going to Dallas in exchange for a third-round pick. As you said, Max, obviously those leave some roster holes. So 4 players over the course of the day on Thursday recalled from Milwaukee: forwards Reed Schaefer, Fedor Svechkov, and Joachim Kemmel, and defenseman Ryan Ufko. Kemmel, who, by the way, was not recalled until the Predators figured out that they had a deal in place for Michael Bunting. Barry Trotz saying on Friday that Kemmel did not even land in Nashville until 6:15 for a 7:08 puck drop. If any of you have ever been to Nashville International Airport at 6:15 on a Thursday night and tried to make it downtown in less than an hour, good luck. For whoever got him down there, I know Brandon Walker played a role. What a role it was to get Kemmel not only from the airport, but into the lineup and onto the bench right as Paul McCann was saying, let's play some hockey. Joachim Kemmel joins his team on the bench. He plays the game. He almost scores a goal. We talked to him on Friday after practice, and he said, yeah, it wasn't ideal, but a game in the NHL, you'll certainly take it. So, again, a wild few days for the Predators, but all they did was come out and win 6-3 against Boston. They talked about being a little bit rattled on Tuesday in Columbus. You're seeing guy like Michael McCarron leave before the game even started, or at least not even play in the game. And then Cole Smith dressed. He was on the bench, but he didn't play, knowing a deal was imminent. Max and Kara, I think the big takeaway, and you touched on it, Kara, as well, is just the response from Tuesday compared to Thursday. The Preds a little bit rattled in Columbus. It was a tough day, but they rallied, and that was helped a lot, I think, Max, by the kids that were in the lineup, but a really good and kind of a fun showing for the Preds on Thursday night, as you said, realizing they're still very much in the thick of this.
It gives you hope for the last 20 games of the season. The younger players taking on bigger minutes, mixing in with the veteran Preds. And look, the way Matt Wood played, the chances that Fedor Svechkov and Reed Schaefer generated in their first game back after really hot stretches in the AHL since the last time we saw them a month ago. And Ryan Ufko gets his first NHL point. So, Kara, I think it's everything you could want to see with what this team's going to look like the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Max, you're hitting the nail on the head. This is exactly what Barry Trotz talked about Friday afternoon in his press conference of why the decisions were made, why certain players are still here. He singled out. You look at a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, wasn't able to get what we would want for him, but what he brings to the locker room, what value he can add to these young guys. Same with Eric Hall. I mean, what these veterans can do for these younger players is going to help immensely down the stretch and for the future of this franchise.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, Kara. We heard from Barry Trotz on Friday afternoon addressing the media, as every general manager usually does around the league once the trade deadline does pass. The Preds not making any deals on deadline day itself. Eric Holla, Jonathan Marchessault, they did not practice on Friday, officially listed as maintenance days, but Barry Trotz admitting that there were some offers on the table for Eric Holla. We know that Marchessault was a possibility. Guys like Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, Barry Trotz mentioning that he spoke to those players as well. But ultimately, I think one of the takeaways was that you've got to have a willing partner to make a trade, right? Or you've got to have at least a partner that's willing to offer what you want to accept for a player. And then some of the trades that the Predators made, Barry Trotz saying he thinks that those were fair values, fair trades for the group. Otherwise, maybe not so much for other guys that remain on the roster on this Friday night. So, Max, you were in the room. I was in the air listening to it. I think I got all of it on the airplane, but you were in the room. What was your main takeaway or takeaways from what Barry Trotz had to say?
Yeah, I wrote down a few things, some of which you already said. We hit all the values that we put on the players that we traded. And I think those returns make sense for those guys. A second for Michael McCarron, even though it's 3 drafts away, is a strong return. A third for Cole Smith is a strong return. And you saw the teams in the West that are loaded at the top of their lineup spend big to add to the bottom of their lineup. And the Preds were beneficiaries of that. Now, I think there were Eastern teams that may have been in on some of these Preds that didn't get traded. And if you don't offer enough, you don't make the move. And that's what I've been saying about a potential Ryan O'Reilly trade for months now. I think he is one of the most valuable players in the NHL. So you do not sell him short with a full year remaining on his contract. I think Barry Trotz made a mature decision to sell the guys he did. And I think he made a mature decision to keep the guys he did. So I think there definitely could have been more with what Barry Trotz told us today. And as I try to read my really awful handwriting, he answered Robbie Stanley's question about Ryan O'Reilly that they got very close to hitting his value, but it didn't happen. And I think big picture, if you're able to step back, it sets up Barry Trotz's successor, who potentially takes over as the Preds GM this summer with Barry Trotz retiring. It sets that GM up with the ability to make some of those big decisions and be able to get their own clean slate.
Yeah, and I don't know that there was necessarily any shock with the deals that were made for the Predators. They were all guys on expiring contracts. I think we expected something to happen regardless of where the team was in the standings. And you make the deals that are there. And as you said, Max, the deals that aren't, you don't have to. And also, we've talked about, you had to recall a bunch of guys from Milwaukee. You weren't getting any players in return, only draft picks. Kara, you can only decimate the roster so much. You have to have bodies to play. You have to have guys, especially at the center ice position, and you can only take so much from Milwaukee. And as Max mentioned, if the deals aren't there, you don't make them. But the makeup now of the roster that is still here. Curious to see it moving forward because there was a lot of energy as we saw last night from the kids as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's one more thing that we should hit on. And this came from Barry Trotz before the game. We had a chance to interview him for the broadcast, asking, when did the decision come that you were going to be a seller? When did the decision come? And Barry was very open that he felt it was after the Detroit game. They started to think about making moves. And one thing he hit on during that conversation was, and we aired it on the broadcast, but in case you missed it, was that where we are in the standings currently, the team was healthy. He goes, you look back at the beginning of the season, we did have some injuries, but up until this point, we've been healthy. And this is kind of where we are. So if you're wondering why Barry was making these decisions, that played into it. He looked at the health of the team, what they were able to get to. And currently, I think we're 3 points out of the last playoff spot at the moment. So there's still hope. But I think now it's just relying on some of these young guys to step up and see what they're able to do.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme down the stretch is what can the young guys do? And again, we saw a lot of that on Thursday against Boston. Max, as you mentioned, Ryan Ufko getting his first career point, a secondary assist, which was kind of funny. I asked him on Friday, how's it feel to have Steven Stamkos and Philip Forsberg on the score sheet for your first assist? He's like, it's easy. All I have to do is pass them the puck and they take care of the rest. There'll be a lot of assists that way if he keeps that up. But again, a guy like Ryan Ufko, who's been Milwaukee's best player, leading the Admirals in scoring, getting another chance. A guy like Fedor Svechkov coming back, who wasn't having a great showing at the NHL level, goes down to Milwaukee, gets some confidence. And we asked him yesterday, what is the mindset right now? And he said very simply, and I loved this, the confidence. He simply said, the spot is mine and I'm going to grab it. And that was it. And he knows what to expect now this time around, especially what the team wants from him. Reed Schaefer, who's been up here, he's gotten a taste. He's back up with more confidence. You could say the same thing for Joachim Kemmel, who almost scored his first NHL goal on Thursday night. And even a guy like Matthew Wood, guys, I would argue that I know that Woody had a hat trick in Madison Square Garden earlier in the season, but I would argue last night that was his best game at the NHL level.
Well, if anyone pushes back on you for that, Brooks, they're absurd, and I'll be on your side for that one, because that game was like 50 things from Matt Wood that we'd never seen before, playing top 6 center in the NHL, and it went so great. And I love seeing him grab it and grow up before our eyes until he goes to be interviewed by my favorite person in the world, Kara Hammer, after the game as the #1 star. And while the mic is on, very politely asks her, would you like me to sit or stand for the interview? No, Woody, you're a big boy now. You do what you want.
That's so funny you say that, Max. In like history, I think for my first 7 years, I never had a player sit. Everybody came over and stood. And then one time somebody sat. Now it's become a thing. I'm like, are we sitting? Are we standing? Are we sitting? Are we standing? I just followed their lead. But you know what? I got to agree with you guys. Last night was Matt Wood's best game. I was so excited for him. I mean, how perfect was his shorthanded goal to come out? And can we talk about him standing up for his teammates? I mean, you're also looking at who's on the other side and you're thinking, Matt Wood, let's not go against anything with Tanner Jeannot if he comes out of the box, but you go, Matt Wood.
No, he did.
He
did say that
he said
post-game.
after the game.
Yeah. He said that post game. He said, I know that that's not a recipe for success. Yes, I have the size, but it kind of ends there against a guy like Tanner Jeannot or Nikita Zadorov. But again, as you said, you love to see that from him. He's like, I saw Phil getting picked on a little bit and he wasn't going to stand for it. So yeah, really great game. And talk about, again, a young guy taking an opportunity, playing the center ice position, taking the chance and grabbing it. And that's what we want to see down the stretch for the Predators. So guys, let's wrap on this. And, we've touched on it a lot. There's 20 games to go. You wonder, and we've seen this not only from the Preds, but from other teams in the NHL in recent seasons, where you're in a situation like this. You're right on the cusp of the playoffs. You trade a few guys at the deadline. You have some young kids come into the lineup, and that inflection of energy kind of keeps teams in it until the very end. We saw it with the Preds a few years ago in 2023. They made a little push and almost squeaked into the playoffs at the end of the season. That is certainly the goal for the Predators. You talk to any of the veterans on this team, they say, we're not out of this yet. We are still very much in the thick of this. And I liked what Barry Trotz also said on Friday. Guys like Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, Roman Josi, he said, our quote, all in on the rest of the season's plan, moving forward with young players coming into the lineup. And not only the older guys getting a chance to mentor those guys, but also to see what they can do in this stretch. So, we'll be realistic about it. It's not going to be easy, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited to not only see what the young guys can do with these opportunities, but continue to play some meaningful hockey down the stretch here. It'd be quite enjoyable in March.
Yeah, it's time to go get it. For Fedor Svechkov, who's on call-up number 3 now, go get it. You're going to play center the rest of the year in the NHL. Go get it. For Ryan Ufko, this may be the longest look he ever gets. Go get it. It's your time. You played 2 NHL games, but hey, treat it like it's your last chance. And I think the way he's played this year in Milwaukee, don't change a thing. Just go out there and do that. Reed Schaefer looked great on Thursday night. Joakim Kimmel, hopefully will get a chance to warm up for his games in the future. But the energy these guys bring is fun. After practice on Friday, trade deadline day, 2 hours before the deadline. What's a stressful day for a lot of people? These guys are bringing laughs and smiles and energy. Zach LaRue is screaming about going to Buffalo and singing to himself and doing whatever the heck goes on in his head that perhaps we can explore in an interview on the future podcast. Joakim Kimmel and Fedor Svechkov are locker mates now. And now that Nick Blankenburg is gone, sorry, Luke Evangelista, you're not part of the best friendship on the team anymore. It might be those guys, and they're absolutely electric in everybody's face, laughing and smiling and having matching buzz cuts and being pretty adorable together. And look, this is where the Preds are at for the rest of the year. Like Eric Holla walks across the room. Everybody, all the media is like, oh, he hasn't been traded yet. He's still here and he didn't get traded. But Ozzy Weisblatt just stares at him and starts laughing. Like this is the mix of Preds youngster and oldster energy that we've got for the rest of the season. And let's see if it gives us something.
Pizza
Absolutely.
Party.
It's where
It really is a pizza party.
we're still having a pizza party. Factors in the mix, as are a lot of other guys, and we're excited to see it. And you talk about the opportunities in the words of the great Herb Brooks. This is your time now. Go out there and take it. That's the mentality for a lot of guys on this Nashville roster, and we'll see what they can do in the next little bit. So I am in Buffalo right now as the Preds get set to play the Sabres on Saturday. It's the start of a 5-game trip. We will then go out west for the next week and a half. Big games against the Kraken, the Canucks, the Oilers, and the Jets. We'll see how that plays out, and we will be back next week with a full episode of the POP. But for now, Max and Kara, thanks for joining on a Friday evening for this quick little trade deadline update. It's been a pleasure.
Do we have time for a quick Big E? Awesome team of the week?
Throw it out.
The Nashville Sled Preds. Shout out to you guys taking on the Metro Detroit Sled hockey team after the game on Monday at Bridgestone Arena. So cool as the Paralympics begin this week to have the Nashville Sled Preds representing USA Sled Hockey, many of whom live here in Nashville. So thanks to them for being a part of our day on Monday.
Awesome. Well said, Max. Thanks to you guys again for getting together here. And thanks to all of you out there for listening, for watching, and we will talk to you next week. Enjoy the weekend. This has been the POP Trade Deadline edition. For Kara and Max, I'm Brooks Bratten. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.